Alright, here's your review for 3A, Congress and the Bureaucracy. Again, we did this unit together due to the fact that Congress controls the budget for the bureaucratic agencies, and the bureaucracy has to listen to their laws and legislation in order to pass their regulations. First off, we're going to talk a little bit about the boundaries and redrawing. State legislatures draw the lines every 10 years after a federal census, and if the population in their state goes up or down, that's reapportionment, which is the reallocation of those seats in the Congress. States can lose or gain representation, which is why it's very important. A gerrymandering creates districts to favor one political party. They try to weaken the other political party. Sometimes you crack or pack the other political party, dividing them up, cracking or packing, giving them one district and then owning the others. Pork barrel legislation deals with funding local projects put in by a congressperson on a piece of legislation to benefit only their constituents. The House Rules Committee is kind of like the traffic cop of the House of Reps. They decide all the rules for the debate, when and how a bill can be amended, and they also schedule the bill for debate, so if it actually even sees the floor. Franking privilege is a privilege that Congresspeople have, especially during campaign time. They can send mail to any one of their constituents without paying anything. All they need is to sign it, give a signature. Senatorial courtesies: a senior member of the Senate from the same party of the president can kill a nomination for approval if the nomination is for a job in that senator's state. So the senator knows that person possibly can kill that nomination. All the other senators will follow suit. In the Senate, the filibuster: no time limit on talking on the floor about a bill or a nomination. You can talk a bill to death, so you try to talk as long so that people leave and there's no quorum, there's no majority of people in the Senate to conduct business. In order to stop this, 16 senators can sign a petition where then they have to vote, and 3/5 of the members have to agree to stop the debate, which is 60 people. However, when it's a federal nominee other than a Supreme Court justice, all they need is 51 senators to end a filibuster. It's called the nuclear option. Revenue bills must originate in the House of Reps. Why? Because they're more responsive to the people. They're elected every 2 years, and their representation is based on population. All nominations must be approved by the president in the Senate. They have committee hearing, then they bring it out to the full Senate for a vote. House members are in for 2 years, Senate 6 years on a rotating basis, so a third of them are elected every 2 years. A couple committees here. The House Ways and Means Committee is important because they are the tax writing committee, only found in the House, because all tax bills have to start in the House. And then the House Appropriations Committee, which provides all the funding for the federal bureaucracies and helps create the budget. This is very important. Senate has more influence over legislation. There's less of them, and they can control a bill by adding more amendments freely. Also, they can filibuster, and the media tends to focus more on them. Iron Triangle is very important. Again, the bureaucracies, a legislative committee, and an interest group are all working together for each other, influencing each other. Hard to break them up. Again, think of the tobacco farmer and the Department of Agriculture and the committees on agriculture in the House and the Senate. Congressional oversight gives the power of Congress, not in the Supreme Court, but they do have the power, or not in the Constitution, but the Supreme Court has said they can do this. They can investigate the bureaucracies, hold hearings, and this is because they control the money and set the laws for those bureaucracies. Speaker of the House is the most powerful in the House. The President pro tempore presides over the Senate when the VP is not there. Also the third in succession if the President dies. The Vice President, really the only job is to preside and then cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Your bureaucracy is your large organization. There's a lot of managers led by those appointed officials, but from the President. A lot of them, though, are career workers that were hired based on merit, and a lot of times the Office of Personnel Management gives those tests and hires those people. I mean, again, the merit system prevents from people just getting jobs based on the spoil system, which is kind of a buddy-buddy system. I will give you a job, and you will vote for me. Competitive service versus expected services. Competitive service that goes through the OPM gives those tests. Those people are competing for jobs, whereas in the CIA and the FBI, those agencies don't use that. They have their own hiring process. When the bureaucracy has grown, it's grown in all types of situations, whether it's a depression and the New Deal is created in time of war and the world wars. All those things can help create a new bureaucratic agency office. Also things like 9/11. Yeah, your average civil servant, middle-aged, white male, not educated, not appointed by the president. Um, Iron triangles are now called issue networks because there's so many interest groups that play a role rather than just one special interest group. Congress creates the laws or the statutes that define all these agencies and bureaucracies. Again, they control the legislation that helps create the regulations. Congress, what part of Congress are bureaucratic agencies most dependent on? Again, that's House Appropriations Committee. Two services that work with Congress are the Congressional Budget Office. It's nonpartisan. It crunches all the numbers for Congress to see what things will cost. And the Research Service conducts all the research for Congress people. Again, gives them another advantage during elections because they don't have to do all the research their own. It's free. It's also nonpartisan. Public opinion polls again say Congress is the least popular branch again, but their re-election rates between 80 and 100%. Originally, Senate members were chosen by state legislatures. The 17th Amendment has changed this. The House is more diverse than the Senate, where there are more non-white members and women who are elected in. In 1992, this is important, 1992 and 94, the redrawing of congressional districts after the reapportionment allowed politicians to gerrymander. And people were disgusted with all the scandals that were going on. The South became more Republican, so then the House became Republican. A party whip is someone who informs party leaders of opinions of the members, convinces party to vote one way or the other. In a standing committee, your most important committee, most bills come out of that committee, and it's a permanent committee. Select committee would be something like steroids in baseball, where it's just for a temporary issue that they're dealing with. A joint committee is both representatives and senators together. It is permanent. It's not glamorous, something like the Library of Congress committee or Committee on Printing. Conference committees when a bill passes in both houses, but they're different versions. They have to talk it out and iron out the differences. Again, anyone in the House or the Senate can introduce a bill. Your standing committees usually are most important, and they're usually traditionally the ones that approve of a bill. A session of Congress is 1 year long. A term of Congress is 2 years long. After 1 year, if a bill is sitting there, it then dies. It can be reintroduced in Congress. A joint resolution, a formal expression of congressional opinion, must be approved by both the House of Congress and signed by the President. Another way they can use joint resolution is to amend the Constitution, but the President does not have to sign it. For bills, they used to have a multiple referral reported to more than one committee at a time. You can't do that anymore. However, they do the sequential referral, where it goes from one committee to the next to look at it and mark it up. A markup session, again, is that when a bill is receiving changes. Sometimes they try to have a discharge petition, where if a bill is stalled, they try to vote it out of committee and right to the floor, but it rarely happens because you can't get enough votes. For the scheduling to get a bill on the floor, the Senate majority and minority leaders are in charge, and they have the unanimous consent agreement sometimes to shorten debate and create the rules for debate. However, the House Rules Committee is in charge of those rules and scheduling those debates. The cloture rule, again, 16 senators have to fill that petition out to receive a vote, and the vote has to be 3/5 or 60 people. That is how you end. Only 51 needed for nominations, which is the nuclear option. In order to override a veto, 2/3 in both houses to override a veto and make a bill a law without a president's signature. Hasn't happened often, however, it just happened recently in Obama's last year. And then there's a look at some possible FRQ options.